So you two probably remember this story, or you might remember it, because I told it many, many years ago. And it popped up again on Facebook and reminded me of it. My cousin, he's a nut. He's absolutely crazy, and we love him for it. Many years ago, he posted on Facebook. He said, "All this time, I thought I was white. I went to Home Depot and I put my arm under the color match thing in the paint department, and it turns out I'm beachy peachy." That struck me as funny, but it also struck me as someone who is very unique. And it occurred to me that we are all unique. It's just some of us aren't willing to go stick our arm under the color match system at Home Depot to figure it out. And most of us aren't brave enough to post that we did it on social media. He was unique in for several reasons there. One is not too many people would do that. Not too many people would post it. He found a way to see himself as unique. That in itself is unique because most of us don't do that. You know, we've come to believe that being unique makes us stand out, and many of us don't want to stand out from the crowd. We want to fit in. We want to match up with others. The problem with that is, as in individual expressions of God, we are unique. And if we're just fitting in, if we're just matching up with everybody else, we're not expressing our uniqueness. You may want to investigate even further. How do you know that you're unique? First of all, look at nature. This is where I turn for just about every answer I've ever needed. Had an experience to share a story about one of my companies. I had a team development company, and I'm sure procrastination played a big part in it, but I caught myself up in a deadline. I had to have a name for my company within like 48 hours, and I hadn't even thought about it. And so racking my brains for several hours, didn't come up with anything, and I finally stepped out on the back porch. Kathy and I lived on a lake, Lake Grapevine, and had a back porch that looked out over this lake. And I just kind of threw my hands up to the universe, to God, to whatever. And what am I going to do? And as I'm watching nature, some movement in the sky caught my eyes, and it was clouds coming across, and they're coming straight at me, and then they would turn. And it was just this pattern. And they just kept turning. And I was, wow, man, that's pretty cool. You know, that's neat the way it just turned like that. And I looked down at the water, and the currents were doing the same thing. Same patterns. And then those linked with the reflection of the clouds, it's like, oh my goodness, changing currents. I was watching the changing currents, and that became the name of my company. Many times I've sat out here on this back porch wondering, what am I going to talk to people about tomorrow? Looking out into the woods, answers come. So look into the woods, look into nature. Because what you're going to find in nature, everything is unique. Everything. Now you may challenge that. Now one oak tree looks like another. One rose bush looks like another. If you look at them from a distance and do a general look, you're right. They will look alike. And see, that's what we do to ourselves. We clump ourselves into these general categories. And yes, at that point, we all look alike. We'll talk more about that in a minute. When you inspect closer, you realize that this oak tree has limbs that are shaped this way, and this oak tree has limbs that do this, and this totally different. All unique. The grass is different. So when we look into nature, we see that everything is unique. Well, if God is going to take the time to create unique individual expressions throughout all of nature, why in the world would he make us all the same? He didn't. He didn't. If God made everything in nature unique, what purpose would it serve? If God made all of us anything but unique, what purpose would that serve? Well, let's turn that around. What purpose is it that we are unique? There's great purpose in creating uniqueness. There's only, before we get there, there's only one thing that we're not unique at. We are all expressions of God. That is the only place that we're not unique. There's nobody on this planet that is not an expression of God. Nobody has ever walked this planet that is not an expression of God. So in that, we're all the same. But that's where similarity stops. That's where similarity stops. The way I know that is because God is infinite. If God is infinite, so is the expression of God. God created us to be expressions of God so that God could itself experience all of this. There's no way that my experience or my expression, my spiritual, my divine expression is the same as yours or yours or yours. It's going to be different. Even if God did say, okay, well, let's make these 20 people this way. This is the expression these 20 are going to have, and these 20 are going to have this. These 20 people have all had different life experiences from each other, which makes them unique. Because the experiences we have in life it doesn't dictate who we are at the core essence, but it does dictate our experience and our expression into this life. You see, there's no way that you're not unique. The biggest drawback to seeing ourselves as unique is comparison. It's so easy for us to compare ourselves to others. In the general point of view, we're all human, but we don't stop there. We don't say, okay, we're all human, but I'm unique in this way. No, we're all human. Let's see, I'm also in this category over here. I'm a white male. You're a white female. She's a black transgender. We find categories that we put ourselves in. And then we stop there. See? I'm not unique. I'm just like all of these people. We have that general overlook, just like we do with the trees out here. If we look at them just as trees instead of as individual expressions of God, they're going to look very similar. Since life experience is different from one another, no matter how we try to categorize ourselves and lump ourselves in with the group, we will never be the same. It will be unique. We stop ourselves from being unique when we allow the experiences of our life to hide our truth. Probably the most impactful teacher that I've ever had showed a bunch of people. I just happened to be in the group, and it was like she was talking directly to me. Showed me this beautiful example of how life prevents us from seeing our unique, seeing our truth. And she had this beautiful white rose. And the rose represented our essence, our truth. And as life starts, things happen. Even things that are meant to be loving happen, and we interpret it weird. For instance, a child is standing next to their mom while mom's cooking dinner, and the child reaches up on top of the stove. Mom goes, "No, no." It's a loving response from the mom to help the child learn you're going to get burned if you do that, without allowing the child to get burned. The child's mind says, "Oh, I'm bad. I'm not good." And so what happens is that causes us to put this layer, and in this example the teacher gave us, it was clay, this black clay. Put a layer on top of that rose, on top of our essence. So we cover ourselves up a little bit. We start building a wall. Then as you're playing out in the front yard, you start running down the driveway and your dad goes, "No!" So that you don't run out in the street in front of a car. "Oh, I did it again, I'm bad." There's another part of that wall, another cover of that layer. And we go through life, even though these things are loving, and there are many things that are not loving, we cover up that rose. We cover up our essence. We build a wall between what we think is our truth and what really is our truth. Many events and experiences in life are interpreted as negative because of the way we have taught ourselves to think about us. We typically don't think too highly of ourselves as we're growing up. Think of your teenage years. What did you think about yourself then? You know, some people thought they were pretty good, but, and then that comparison comes in. "Oh, look at so-and-so over there. I don't stand up to that." Not there. Each negative part, interpretation, whether it's real or not, causes us to cover that up. This blob of clay creates an illusion that there is nothing within. That song that we sang at the beginning of the day talks about, I was afraid of what I would find within. See, when we do decide that life is there's probably more to life than we've been experiencing, and we learn that we do need to look within, and we take that first glance, we see that big blob of clay, that wall, and it's like, oh, if that thing's there, what's it hiding? There must be something awful behind it. See, our minds are tricky. We convince ourselves it's not worth looking within. And so many people go back out, okay, the answer must be out there somewhere. Couldn't be there. Let's get out here, let's go look and see what the world has to offer. If you tune into the news at all, you can see what that kind of mentality has done to us. We've created a pretty scary place if we rely on that to be our truth. So we look back within. There's a great story that kind of helps us move into the next part of this talk, and that's of there was a Buddhist group many years ago, like 1100s I think it was, or 1200s maybe. They had a monastery, and they heard that a group of warriors were headed their way, and knowing that the warriors would destroy everything in the monastery, they took this gold statue of Buddha and covered it in mud. And by the time the warriors got there, they just saw this mud statue of Buddha sitting there and thought, no sense in bothering with that, and destroyed everything and went on their way. Well, in the process of destroying everything, the monks that lived had run off. They'd gone into hiding, and for whatever reason, they didn't make it back. Many years later, another group of monks came in, Buddhist monks came in to that monastery to reopen it, and something similar happened. A warring tribe was headed their way. This time, instead of just covering up this, they picked this statue up, and they carried it with them. As they were carrying it, a crack formed. First reaction is crack. Statue, not good. This can be ugly. And then as they looked at it a little bit more, they realized there was a glint, a spark almost, coming from that crack. It was then that they started chipping away at the mud and realized what was underneath. It was gold. Same thing with our essence. It's not that we can't get through that. It's just that we have for so long seen this blob of mud, this wall, in front of us when we look within, that we think that's real. So to find our uniqueness, we've got to go back to our truth. We've got to live our truth. And we've got to just chip away at that clay and open that back up again. Look at it, anything other than our inner truth, our uniqueness hides from us. We're not going to see our unique unless we look at our truth. You might have something you believe is your uniqueness, but if it didn't come from that place of truth, that place of love, that place of divine peace, it's just a form of your uniqueness at best. So we've got to go back in. We've got to reconnect to our truth. And we do that when we stop comparing to others. Most of us have been adding clay for a very long time. We've got to stop, number one. Stop doing that. Every time you think, I'm not good enough. Negative, stop. Give yourself an affirmation. You are good. You are good enough. However you want to phrase it. Build an affirmation around it. In my team development programs, I taught what I called a twofer. And the way this was set up was if Billy, during the programs, if Billy even jokingly made a comment about William that was even close to being negative, call a timeout. And Billy would have to give William a twofer. So she gave William one negative. Now she had to give him two positives. One positive to negate that negative and one to build up his bank account of positivity. So I challenge you to do the same thing. Anytime you think negatively toward yourself or in a negative definition of yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm bad, I'm too weak, I'm not whatever. Anytime you catch yourself doing that, give yourself a twofer. Because this starts breaking that crack open. And you will find the more you do that, the easier it is to chip away at that clay. Your truth, your uniqueness is within. The only way to ever open awareness to your uniqueness is to look within, to see your truth, to know your oneness with God, to know you are a unique individual expression of God. So clear away that clay. Your uniqueness. Now hear me, because I'm going to tell you right now what your uniqueness is. This holds true for all of you. Your uniqueness is that you are a beautiful expression of God. I want you to breathe that in for a minute. Say that to yourself. I am a beautiful expression of God. You breathe that in. Embrace that truth. And if you feel like it, say it over and over and over and over again. Because the more you say it, the more you recognize it, the more you believe it. Your essence, the truth of you, is whole, It is love. It is peace. It is joy. It is abundance. It is all of the attributes of God. So let the knowing of this truth be your chisel that helps you break away that wall, chip away all that clay that's been blocking you from fully realizing your essence, your truth. So I invite you, let your unique shine. Go to Home Depot and scan your skin, see what it says. Be unique. Be you. Let's close with prayer. Father God, we recognize the omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience of you. The only presence, the only power, and the only wisdom there is. As we open awareness to this infinite presence, power, and wisdom that is you, God, we realize we are made of these same divine attributes as well. Guide us as we consciously participate in opening awareness to this truth. Guide us as we consciously participate in experiencing and expressing this truth. Let us know that we are a divine and perfect idea of you, and that in that idea, we truly are unique. Knowing this prayer is already made manifest, and truth is all there is, we say, and so it is. Amen.